webinar number 6 on the inclusive classroom. My name is Troy Waller. I am a learning delivery specialist and also I am the accessibility lead for Microsoft Australia Education. This is as you can see, number 6 webinar in a series that we've been running so far. So I do encourage you to go back and check out our earlier webinars, mainly because this actually builds on a lot of the stuff that we've presented in earlier webinars. So it's really good to get your head around the basics of Office 365, for example, and also around Teams so that you can understand how to better integrate these features. This is a webinar that's near and dear to me and very close to my heart. I really do like presenting this because I think we can make a difference to the students that need it, but even more so in this remote environment or remote context that we're all in, whether that's remote learning or for us, remote teaching. Being able to make these tools and features available to kids is actually going to make a difference to them because we just can't be in the same room with them, with many of them, most of them. So it's really good to be able to show them how they can use technology to give them the support that they would have got once upon a time from an aide or even a teacher. What makes this even cooler though is the reduction of stigma, meaning that they can actually use the same technology as their peers, the same devices, the same software, and that reduces stigma. And so they're getting that support that once upon a time they sort of got conspicuously from an aide or from a teacher, now becomes, you know, less visible, and that means less stigma. So this is our remote learning launching page and landing page, aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. So please pop over there and see some of the great stuff that we've got available for you. I'm going to ask Deb to come off mute and introduce herself and tell us all about what CSER's offering to their teachers.
Thanks, Troy. Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Kroger from the Learning and Technologies team at Catholic Ed SA. My email contact is there, so if you've got any questions around this from a Catholic Ed perspective, please do email me. And the link there is to the Learning Online website that Catholic Ed created at the end of last term. And that page in particular has got some resources there for teachers around the tools that some of the tools that you're going to see today. So hopefully that's a useful resource for you as well.
Excellent. The other thing we want to remind you of is that the slides and the recordings for today's webinar and also our past webinars are available at that address there, aka.ms/CSER webinars. The recording for this one will be available probably in about half an hour after we finish, but all the previous webinars are already there. And as I said, it's really important to go back and get your head around some of those other features, because a lot of what I'm going to share with you today presupposes that you at least know about these other ones. Before I move on, I'm going to ask Anna to come in and introduce herself. She's going to be handling the Q&A today.
Hi everybody, thanks Troy. Yeah, so my name is Anna. I usually work at the Microsoft store in Sydney, but due to the COVID-19 situation, I've been sort of redeployed to do virtual trainings. So yeah, feel free to pop in some questions in the Q&A and I will do my best to assist you.
Excellent. So it's funny, you know, with the idea of remote webinars, and Anna's in Sydney, I'm in Melbourne, Deb's in Adelaide, and yet we're all doing this together. So it's kind of cool. And I wonder and I hope that much of this is actually going to hold over when we do go back on site, back to our schools and back to our offices and things like that. I hope that a lot of this stuff carries on because I think it's quite useful. Anyway, let's have a look at our webinar, and here's the agenda. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Microsoft Educator community, which I do every time because that is your professional development portal, and I'll definitely share with you some links back to that. We're going to talk about the inclusive classroom and what Microsoft mean by the inclusive classroom. We'll look at reading support with Immersive Reader, and then we'll look at where Immersive Reader lives across Microsoft 365, talk a little bit about Immersive Reader in Minecraft, and then we'll look at Teams. And then we'll share some next steps and hopefully have enough time for some Q&A. So this is Microsoft's mission statement. Our mission is to empower every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. And I've underlined every person there because it really is genuinely part of our mission and part of our responsibility to see that that technology does everything it can for everyone, not just the enabled, but also sometimes people that need that little bit more support, and especially students as well. So I really love that mission statement because I feel when I'm doing this webinar in particular, or this workshop in particular, that I'm genuinely helping you know, that every person. It's really quite cool. So in terms of our Microsoft Educator community, remember, if you've done my webinars before, this is old news. If you're new, you can visit that website there, education.microsoft.com, sign in. When you'll see a little sign in thing to the top right, use your school email address and password, and it will keep a record. You get to explore courses around how to use Microsoft technology in the classroom in effective and engaging ways, while also earning professional development hours, because the TRB, South Australia TRB, actually recognise these courses because they meet the AITSL standards. So they do count towards the hours that you need on an annual basis. We also have what are called learning paths, which are groups of courses. So you can focus on skill development or a Microsoft product in a learning path, and those collection of courses take you at sort of a deeper learning in the topic. I want to really stress that both our courses and our learning paths are not so much focused around product, but about how to use that product in a really engaging way and in a meaningful way with your students. And then, as I said before, you get to view your achievements. So there's it's gamified. There's badges and points that you can earn that's recorded in your profile. But more importantly, there's a training transcript that's available that you can print off or you can download as a PDF, and you can demonstrate your learning. So it records, you know, the date that you logged in, the time that you spent, and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I really want to stress that it's a good resource for you. And a lot of what we're talking about today, there's courses specifically around that. So this is our Office 365 start page. You can find that by going to www.office.com, www.office.com. And then when you sign into that, just make sure that you use your school email address and your regular password, and then that will access your Office 365 subscription. There is a free service. It's available to everybody, but it's not as feature rich. It doesn't have everything, all the bells and whistles and buttons and all the cool things, and much of what I'm going to share with you today. All right, so make sure that you sign in using your username, your school email address as your username and your regular password. So Microsoft, we want to engage every learner in a diverse K-12 classroom. Now let me share with you what that looks like. 50% of instructional time can be lost managing students' needs, including assistive technology. Now these are Australian stats, right? Second one is virtually 100% of schools in Australia have students with identified learning difficulties enrolled. All right, so it's pretty much every school in the country. Almost 20% of students in Australian schools require inclusive education support. That's 1 in 5. Right, so that's a lot of kids. And then in New South Wales, almost 30% of students are from a language background other than English. So I'd be interested to know what that is for South Australia, what that stat is. I'd actually like to know what it is for Victoria as well. But I'm guessing it's not going to be much different to that. And when you get these slides, there's the links there if you want to dig in and find out where I got those stats from. So we want to build a foundation for success. So our inclusive education tools give more students personalised access to their curriculum, optimise educator time, and improve learning outcomes. All right, so we want to see students increase independence and experience a reduction of stigma. That's what I talked about before, right? The students can do this by themselves, that the technology assists them rather than another human being. And then that reduces the stigma as well, because, you know, they're not having someone looking at them and, you know, other students looking at them and seeing that they're getting help when the other kids are doing it by themselves. Educators, we want to make sure are more empowered to engage every learner. So I talked before about optimizing educator time. We want to make this easy for educators. We don't want to make it harder. We don't want the technology to be another thing. I'm just going to get rid of that. And then we also want to make sure that our institutions build reputations as positive places that promote equity and inclusion. So as CSER has rolled this out and these features and these tools to students, it reflects back on CSER saying this is what matters to us, right? Equity and inclusion is a value that we you know, strongly hold and stand by. So everybody wins in terms of, you know, inclusive education tools. All right. So let's talk about the Inclusive Classroom. Now, you may have seen that the name of this webinar was the Inclusive Classroom Part 1, because there's just far too much for me to do it in one session. So we'll see how we go about holding another webinar for you guys, or at least giving you links to the ongoing webinars as these sort of open up. So reading support is what we're going to do today. We're going to look at least the beginnings of what we can do in terms of supporting kids as they read, but also writing support, math support, and speaking and listening are there as well. But again, today we're really going to focus on this topic here, which is reading support. So we know that if kids don't master the ability to decode and read by about grade 3, they're at a disadvantage for the rest of their lives, right? So it's really, really key. Now, I was an early years teacher for very many years, and I know that the responsibility was on me as a teacher to make sure that those kids didn't get left behind. So what happened at Microsoft was you had a group of people that looked at things like dyslexia, right, and thought, you know, we could possibly give some support to students around dyslexia. And so they entered a competition, an internal competition at Microsoft called a hackathon, and they actually won that. And originally it was rolled out to just to OneNote, but it's become so huge that it's actually gone further than that. Now, we originally called it Learning Tools, but it became, as I said, so popular that people outside of education were using it. So we rebranded that as Immersive Reader, meaning that it doesn't necessarily just lend itself to an education context, that people in business and adults can be using this tool as well, and certainly outside of school. So you may have heard it called Learning Tools before, but Immersive Reader is what it's branded as now. So I'm going to show you what it looks like in Word. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take you and I'm going to show you it inside Word Online. Now, I want to really draw a distinction here, and I'm just going to show you something up here. So here I am at the Microsoft Office start page. Now, if I was to use Word on my machine, okay, that is install the full version of Word through Office, I'm going to have a slightly different experience than if I use the online version of Word, which is up here. Okay, so this is Word in the browser. So what's going to happen is some of you are going to open up Word and say, mine's not doing that. Remember, I'm not talking about Word installed down on your machine. I'm talking about logging into Office 365, which is office.com. We talked about how to do that, use your school email address, etc. And then I want you to come into Word here, okay? So Word Online. And that's because Immersive Reader is much more feature rich in the full version, okay? So if I was to click on Word here, it would open Word, okay? Something like this, and I can click on a new blank document or find some of my existing documents, right? But I've already opened it up here, so I'm going to jump back there. I've already opened it here, and you can see this piece of text. Now let's think about a scenario, and that is a remote learning scenario. So what's happened here is the teacher has made a piece of text available to the student, and the teacher wants the student to read this, okay? Now, if our student is challenged by text for whatever reasons, whether that's dyslexia, low vision, or some sort of processing issue, the student is going to be left on their own. Okay. Now, certainly for a lot of the kids, there may be parents at home working remotely as well, and they may be able to offer support. But for a lot of students, and especially, you know, with the demands of working from home on a lot of parents, it's very, very difficult to give the students the support that they need. Once upon a time, it might have been an aide or a teacher, but now students are really on their own, or at least really struggling. So when we come into Word Online, you'll notice that it is, if you're using the latest version of Word, you'll notice it looks very similar to the latest version of Word. But our student comes up to this and she gets stuck. All right, she doesn't know where to go on. So what we need to do is we need to introduce the students to, and the parents as well, to Immersive Reader. Now, Immersive Reader lives under the View button here. So you can see I'm up here, click on View, and there's Immersive Reader. All right, now it's hard to remember where everything is. All right, like if I click on this tab and this tab, it's really hard to remember where everything is as an adult, let alone as a child. So we've got this little thing up here called tell me what you want to do. So if I start typing in something like Immersive Reader, you see what it actually does is it brings up the button, right? So the button for Immersive Reader is there. As a matter of fact, all our buttons under all our tabs can be found through tell me. So tell me is really, really important, and I suggest that you direct your students to that. So anyway, let's go back to Immersive Reader. So there's the Immersive Reader button. So what our little girl does is she's struggling with this piece of text. She can't get the support she needs for whatever reason. Mum and dad are busy. Mum and dad have gone to the supermarket. Teacher can't help. So what she does is she clicks on Immersive Reader. Now, the first thing we notice, and I'm just going to push this little button here, this little maximize button here, to get rid of all the bells and whistles of the browser. Now, the first thing we notice is that even before I did that, Word has disappeared. And all we have is the document, and all that's left up here is the browser, but I'm just going to maximize that so we get rid of all the distractions. So for things like ADD and other students that are easily distracted, it's really nice to get rid of as many of those distractions as we can. There is a series of icons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you want to count that one, there's actually 6. But you can see here that when we hover over that, we get to see this is text preferences, this is grammar options, this is reading preferences, this is voice settings, and this is play. All right, so for the students though, they will learn very quickly. They don't need to know the text behind each one of these, but you look what happens. Our little girl clicks on the text preferences, and inside the document, right, from inside the actual document, she's not having to go out to her browser settings, to the Word settings, to the Mac settings, to the PC settings, nothing. It's all happening inside the document, which makes it really easy for her to actually set this exactly the way she wants it. All right, so you can see here we can increase and decrease the text size with a little slider, and she sets that to where she's comfortable. The other thing that she can do is she can increase the spacing. Now, for something like dyslexia, when we talk about visual crowding, when we get the words running, the students report that the words run together, the letters run together, and it gets very confusing for them. And it's for them, it's actually quite visual. So what we do is by increasing the spacing, we increase the spacing between the letters, between the words, and also between the lines. And that's going to help reduce that visual crowding experience for those students. And then we can increase the text size, which will increase that spacing even further. We've got 3 very simple fonts. We've got Calibri, Sitka, and Comic Sans, primary teacher's favorite handwriting looking font. These are 3 fonts that lend themselves to students with dyslexia. So what the point I'm making there is, you may have heard of a dyslexic font. It's not, the dyslexic font is not a good thing. It is a good thing. However, these fonts, research-wise, are the same. In other words, you don't need to pay for the dyslexia font. You just need to use a very simple, plain font and make sure that we've got good spacing between the letters, between the words, and between the lines. We can also change the theme, okay, depending on what's going to be easier on the child's eyes, what's going to be nicer for them when they are working in different lighting, etc. All right, so that's what that looks like there. Now I need to make sure that I have actually shared my screen with my sound turned on. So excuse me, I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. I'm going to reshare, making sure that I put in my system audio. And you just have to forgive me for a moment. We're nearly there. Okay, so Anna, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. Now what happens now is you can see that this little, the first word has actually got a little box around it, because what we're going to do is we're going to click on the play button here, and we're going to actually have this document read to us.
Last Christmas holidays I played with my puppy Brandy. I sprayed water at her. I wrestled her and I played soccer with her. We sat down together, we said jokes to each other, we played and played until I had to go into the house and eat lunch. When I was done eating, I went.
Now, I'm not sure whether you could see that in sync. I promise you, when the student's using it, highlighting of the text and the voice are actually in perfect sync. So what that means is it's as if someone is actually following along, pointing to the words as they read. So it simulates the idea of the aide or the teacher or even the student themselves pointing to the words as they're having it read to them. Okay, so yes, you can slow that down.
Back outside, and I read her a book called Flubber.
And we can also speed it up.
I typed 10 times, and she tagged me with her 11 times, so she beat me. Then we can say all 12 months 5 times. Then we say the song, then we say the 7 constants 10 times.
Now you may look at that and go, oh, that's actually useless, that's too fast. No, for students that use a screen reader, they actually tune in. And if you think about it, that's how fast you read, right? You actually flick through quite fast. So students will, especially when they're not dealing with a cognitive processing issue, they will actually, an auditory processing issue, I should say, they will actually want that to be that fast. So don't be surprised if students actually turn it up really fast. Depending on the accent that we're using, there's female and male voices. Australian at the moment only has a female voice. Did you notice that it was reading in an Aussie accent? Let me go back and start that again and have a listen.
Last Christmas holidays I played with my puppy Brandy. I sprayed water at her. I wrestled her and I played soccer with her.
So what we need to make sure is that the language pack on the machine that the student is using is set to Australian English, and just make sure that the browser is set to Australian English as well, and then it'll default into that Aussie accent. All right, so no Stephen Hawking there, a really nice sounding natural Aussie accent. The other thing that we can do is we can listen to an individual word. So for example, if I'm struggling with the word holidays, when I click on that, instead of having the whole thing played to me, maybe the support that I need is just that individual word. So I can
Holidays.
See it and hear it.
Holidays.
In English, excuse me. The other thing we can do is we can syllabify. So what I might do is I might just actually pull this a little bit smaller so you guys can see a lot more. Now what's happening there is the artificial intelligence is reading the text, and it's looking at those words and it's breaking them down into syllables, right? So that's again imitating the idea of chunking. So if I was working with a student who was struggling with a word, I might suggest them to break that word down. So what's happening there is it's helping them to break it down into syllables. Holidays, right? So that's something that would imitate what the aide or the teacher would have done if they were in the room with the student. The other thing that we can do is we can highlight our parts of speech. So we can highlight our nouns, our verbs, our adjectives, and our adverbs. Now, I want to stress that what's happening there is that the artificial intelligence is actually reading those words in context. So what I'm trying to say is that when our kids actually, the kid and the little girl and the dog played tag, you can see that tag there is a noun because it's a game. But when we talk about tag, the action of tagging, that's actually highlighted as a verb. So it will contextualize the sentence, the parts of speech in the sentence, and label them accordingly, even if you know there's the option for them to be ambiguous. All right, so that's really quite cool. You can change the colors. All right, so students can set the colors that they're comfortable with. So because they have some sort of differentiation issue in terms of being able to see colors, they could actually change the color to whatever's going to work for them. So for example, we might want to have one being blue, and then we might want to have verbs being red. Okay, and if they really have trouble with colors and the ability to distinguish, we can throw the labels up like that. All right, so now we can see the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives, etc. Now I want to stop here and just point out that the way that I've set up this document here is I've turned absolutely everything on, right? So I've, changed the text size, the spacing, the font, I've syllabified, I've highlighted all the parts of speech, etc. There's probably very few kids that are going to need everything switched on at the same time, right? We want to make sure that we have a balance of support and challenge. Too much support and children don't grow and they don't progress. Too much challenge and children don't progress either. So we need to make sure that we help the students understand to only turn on what it is that they need, right? So no one's going to turn on everything. The next stage that we move on to, though, is we look at our third icon over here, and we have what's called reading preferences. And we have the ability to turn on our line focus. So we can go at 1 line, 3 lines, or 5 lines. All right, so this is going to reduce distraction even further. So now when I click on this,
holidays I played with my puppy Brandy. I sprayed water at her. I wrestled her and I played soccer with her.
So I talk with teachers all the time who say that's exactly what I would do. I would perhaps get 2 pieces of paper and cover up the parts of the text except the one that the students are using. There's the line that they're using at that time. There's even pre-made tools that you can buy that will do that. But the cool thing is it's all built in here for you. The other thing that we've got, I'm going to turn the line focus off, is we've got Picture Dictionary. So when I click on Picture Dictionary, what happens now is when I click on a word that I don't know, I not only can see it and hear it,
holidays,
but I also get picture prompts to help me with the meaning of the word. Now, I want to stress these aren't contextualized by the sentence. It will just bring up, everything that it can to prompt what could be the possible meaning. I'll show you what I mean, especially if I look at played. You can see there's all different variations of what played might mean. Okay, but it's using BoardMaker. So those of you that are in remedial education will know this tool. It's actually a very powerful tool. You can't add to this. It's just as the tool is updated, it will actually bring in more icons for you. So have a look here. There's soccer, jokes, together, and not every word or every phrase is going to have a picture dictionary prompt, but often it does. So again, that's using what teachers, it's imitating what teachers use, which is trying to prompt students through pictures. Okay, now that a moment ago looked like this to our little girl. Okay, now whenever she clicks on Immersive Reader using the same device, it will remember this. So I dialed this right back and showed you how we could build it out, just to help you understand what's possible. But once it's set, then that's it. So regardless of what the original text looks like, whenever our student comes into Immersive Reader on the same device, she will actually see it exactly as she set it up. Whether that's looking at fonts, whether that's looking at grammar, or whether that's looking at picture dictionary, etc. Now, I want to share another scenario with you, right? I want you to imagine that we have a little boy who's at home, working from home, and he is Korean, okay? So he comes from a Korean-speaking house. Maybe he's grown up in Australia, maybe he didn't, at least to that point, and now he's actually been given the same piece of text. His English is quite good, but he's going to hit some words that he's really going to struggle with, and he doesn't know, how to pronounce it, or even maybe, even if he can pronounce it, he doesn't quite know what that word means. So what we've done is we've actually built a very powerful translator artificial intelligence, a translator AI, into Immersive Reader. So our little boy was Korean, so you can see all the different languages that we can translate from and into. It's really quite an exhaustive, I won't say an exhaustive list, but it's a huge list. So let's go back to Korean, because he was Korean, as I said. Now what happens for this little boy, we've turned it on by word. So when he hits a word like wrestled, he might have struggled with that word wrestled. He can now see it and hear it in English.
Wrestled.
And see it and hear it in Korean.
Wrestling.
Okay, or a word like soccer, for example.
Soccer.
축구.
Okay, so he can see it and hear it in Korean. But where it gets really powerful is when we go into the full translation. So let me play that for you, because I think you're going to be quite blown away. If you do happen to speak Korean, I know you're going to be impressed by the natural intonation and inflection of this voice. Have a listen.
지난 크리스마스 휴일 나는 내 강아지 브랜디와 함께 연주. 나는 그녀에게 물을 부었다. 나는 그녀를 씨름하고 나는 그녀와 함께 축구를 했다.
And because Caesar is a Catholic school group, let's have a look at what that looks like in something like Italian. I know that we could be Italian or Spanish. There's a lot of people in your schools that are teaching this as a second language. So I'm hoping that some of you are going to be quite impressed by this translation here. So let's have a look at the original. Last Christmas holidays, I played with my puppy Brandy. I sprayed water at her. I wrestled her. I played soccer with her. Let's flick it over into Italian and have a listen to this.
Le vacanze di Natale scorso ho giocato con il mio cucciolo Brandy. Le ho spruzzato dell'acqua. L'ho combattuta e ho giocato a calcio con lei.
So it really depends on the language in terms of what features are available. So you can see there that both Italian and Korean still found the parts of speech for us. But when we go into something like Chinese, for example, or let's go into Vietnamese. So when we go into Vietnamese and we do the translation, you can see there now we've lost those parts of speech, and we've probably also lost the picture dictionary as well. Okay, but I'll play this for you anyway because it really is quite impressive.
Cuối cùng ngày lễ Giáng sinh tôi chơi với của tôi vợ Giáng đi. Tôi phun nước vào cô ấy. Tôi vật lộn cô ấy và tôi chơi bóng đá với cô ấy.
Okay, so again, two scenarios there that we showed. One was our little girl challenged by dyslexia and her inability to access the text and how this could support her. And the other one was our little Korean boy. So a moment ago, they were both locked out of the text or much of the text because it looked like this. But with Immersive Reader, it actually makes a huge, huge difference to them. All right. Let me keep moving and showing you some of the other cool stuff that we've got. So we've seen this, and I want you to think, a little bit beyond remote learning now, although this could be used in a remote learning context, but remembering that this tool isn't just about remote learning. You could use this when you get back to your classroom, but we've seen it used for sight word recognition. So these kids aren't challenged or diagnosed with anything. They're just learning to read. They're those emerging readers, and so we can see that using it for sight word recognition can help alleviate some of that boredom. They get the picture dictionary, they get it read to them, etc. It's quite cool. The other thing that we can do is we can use it for listening posts and independent reading stations. So that means that a teacher can make the text available to the student at home, or when you get back to school as well. Instead of needing someone to sit there and read to them, the computer will actually read that that text to them, so that they could be sitting there reading that with the actual reader, or they can be following along on the screen. The other thing too is we've seen is the ability to translate is quite powerful, but the other thing is it will actually read multiple languages as well. So if you've got an original Italian piece of text or a piece of French text or even Chinese, it will identify and start to read in those languages. It's an empowering tool. Have a look at this quote here from one of the studies that was carried out. It's an empowering tool. It evens the playing fields for kids who are struggling readers. It allows them to feel more like independent learners, not depending on the teacher, not depending on the peers. All right, so that's talking about that stigma there. But when we're in a remote access, they can't depend on other learners. They can't depend on the teacher. So it's more than empowering. It actually opens up the learning to them. It's also really good to use this in a mainstream setting, because another study that was carried out showed, this is one of the quote, that nearly all of the study teachers mentioned how it enabled their readers, regardless of skill level, to access content aimed at a higher reading level. In this case, access means comprehension of content that had previously been unavailable. In other words, again, a mainstream tool helping kids to access texts that are at a higher level than they are, and they may need that for social studies, they may need it for science or something like that. Being able to switch this on helps them to access texts that would normally be unavailable to them. Again, not diagnosed with anything, just needing to access text. So think about that you can roll this out not just to the kids that, in inverted commas, need it, but the kids that may need it in a situational context. Okay. Again, I'm going to make these slides available to you, so these will have links on them that will take you to these studies. But a study by the British Dyslexia Association and Noel Hill found that 16 out of 18 children showed improved behaviour, right? That's simply because they could access the learning. And 11 out of 16 saw their reading comprehension scores get better. Another study that we showed 4th to 12th graders showing that their reading comprehension scores improved, their writing improved, their non-cognitive processes improved. So there were 2 third-party studies that wasn't carried out by Microsoft. So how do we access this? Well, I've already shown you that we can find it in Office 365. Okay, so you can find this in the in Word Online. All right, and I'll show you some other tools as well. But if you've got an Office 365 subscription, you've got access to this tool. It is also available in Office Online, which is the free version. So if you go to office.com and you don't have a 365 subscription, you can actually create a free account there on the spot and you can access it. And it's also available in Teams. Now, I want to show you what it looks like in OneNote, because OneNote, and I'm gonna, yeah, so this is OneNote, the Windows 10 app. Okay, so this is for Windows 10. All right, so if you have a Windows machine, you can download the OneNote app and you will see that Immersive Reader. Look here on View, and then I click on Immersive Reader. And then I get that Immersive Reader experience that we saw before, all happening inside OneNote. Have a look at this.
The Pacific Northwest tree octopus, Octopus paxivolis, can be found in the temperate rainforests of the Olympic Peninsula on the west coast of North America.
All right, so that's what it looks like in OneNote for Windows 10. I also want to show you what it looks like in OneNote online. So that is, if you've got a browser and you can access OneNote, again, we can look it up in Tell Me, or we can come over here to View and click on Immersive Reader. Okay, and there we go. It's able to
Audio recording start.
To read that for me as well. Okay, probably because I need to be in there. Okay, so there we go. All right, so Immersive Reader is available in OneNote Online. It's also available for OneNote for Windows 10. But look at us. We play really well with the other kids. So you can access OneNote for iPad, and Immersive Reader will be there. OneNote for Mac also has Immersive Reader. Please note, it is not inside the Word for Mac and Word for iPad. It's in OneNote for iPad and OneNote for Mac, but you can still access it through the browser of those two tools. Go into office.com and you can access it through Word in the browser, Word Online. Okay. All right. Looking at the time, we've still got a little bit of time, so let's keep going. So the next one I want to talk to you about is what's called Office Lens. So I'm going to show you Office Lens. I'm going to show you some of the things that Office Lens can do, and then I'm going to bring it back to its integration with Immersive Reader. So Office Lens is an app that can be downloaded for your iPhone, for your Android phone, for your PC, and for your iPad. All right, so let me stress that again. It's for your Android. It's an Android app. There's a iOS app. There's an iPad app. There's a Windows 10 app. There's no Mac app. All right, but what it does is it takes photographs of text and then it does some really cool things. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a video here, and hopefully you're going to see some of the cool things that this will do.
Turn your iPhone into a scanner. Office Lens crops, straightens, enhances, and makes pictures of whiteboards and documents readable. How do you save and share your meeting notes on the whiteboard after meetings? Use Office Lens. Just frame your shot from any angle and snap a picture. Office Lens automatically crops, straightens, sharpens, and cleans up whiteboard images. Save the image to OneNote or OneDrive and get it from any of your devices.
Okay, so first thing we notice is what it can do with whiteboards, right? So obviously in a remote access environment, that's not going to be such an issue. But when we get back to school, kids that can't keep up with the whiteboard can actually bring their device that's got the Office Lens, doesn't have to be a phone, and they can take a photograph of that and it will crop and straighten the whiteboard image, because they're unable to perhaps get all the information down, and then it'll save it for them into their OneDrive space or into their Office environment. Now, that's the whiteboard feature. Now, I want to show you what happens with the document feature.
Or share the image in an email. Do you ever worry about misplacing important documents? Switch to document mode and Office Lens will trim and color the image perfectly. Save time and convert the image to a Word document that you can edit. Layout is preserved and text is automatically recognized, so you can start editing right away.
All right, so I want to stress there that what's happened there is using what's called OCR, optical character recognition, from the device, we can take a photograph of the document, okay? And then we can drop it into something like Word or OneNote or wherever we want to drop it, and then we can start editing that document right away. Now, where that is really cool for us in our excuse me, I'm just going to jump across here. Where that's important for us is when we come into something like OneNote and we drop that image into OneNote. So here we have a scenario where our student is unable to keep up with what's happening outside the computer because it's a textbook page, right? So using Office Lens, you can take a photograph of that page and then turn on Immersive Reader. And that full Immersive Reader experience that we saw a moment ago, right? The ability to change the text size, color, text type, spacing, parts of speech, syllabify, line focus, picture dictionary, translation, everything can happen for that from that photograph of text. Have a look at this.
After a while, I asked the students if they would design a search that would only yield results from Iceland about the impact of climate change on the melting seas.
So what that means for a teacher is if they know that their students are going to struggle with the textbook pages, for example, the teacher could actually grab Office Lens images and share those with the students, or the students can make the Office Lens photographs themselves. Okay, so what I did was using Office Lens on my phone, I took a photograph of the page, I dropped it into OneNote, and then I get that full Immersive Reader experience. So that's what it looks like in OneNote. I hope you're quite impressed by that, but that's what it looks like with that integration of Office Lens with Immersive Reader. Okay, so our next one. So this is the Edge browser. So you may have heard of Internet Explorer. That was our old browser. Microsoft has got a new browser out called Edge. If you don't know Edge, I suggest that you go and download that and make sure that you're running it on your Windows 10 machine. What I'm about to share with you is only available for Windows 10, but let me take you through and show you. So I'm going to come into a website. Oh, excuse me, I need to make sure that I turn that off. So here's a website that I have. It's called The Phases of the Moon. Yep, I accept cookies. Now you look at this page here, okay? So this is a great article for students that are studying the moon, but we've got text, we've got photographs, it's broken up, there's highlighting, there's all kinds of stuff. And look at all these ads and all this other stuff that's around. For a lot of the kids that we work with, it's going to really make accessing that text really, really hard. So what we've done with the Edge browser is we've built Immersive Reader into the Edge browser. Can you see up here, we've got the little Immersive Reader button. All right, so what happens when I click on Immersive Reader, it actually strips all the distractions of the app away, okay, and of the web page, I should say, and you can see that it hasn't removed the photographs, but it's pulled the text away from the photographs, okay? So now when I come up here and hit read aloud.
The phases of the moon. Why does the moon change shape each night? Have you ever looked up at the sky and noticed how the moon changes shape each night?
So you can see there that we've got the read aloud, we've got the follow along, it's highlighting the words, but there's much more that we can do. So I can, again, increase and decrease the text size. I can increase and decrease the spacing. I've got the ability to change all the colors. In terms of reading preferences, I've got my line focus again, right, which is going to help me read along and reduce those distractions. And grammar tools, I can syllabify, all right, so it's going to break those words into syllables, and I can highlight my nouns, my verbs, and my adjectives, and also show the labels. There's no adverbs. Please notice as well that the translation is not there. There is another add-in that we can get, the Microsoft Translate add-in, which will do real-time translation. But watch this space. It's not going to be long before Translate is going to be built into the Edge browser right here as well. So you can see we've got almost the entire Immersive Reader experience, but happening for web pages, which is really, really nice. Now, the other thing I want to stress to you is that some web pages will actually disable this because they see it as ad stripping software, and it's not going to work on every single page you go to, but I think you'll find it will work for a lot of them. Now, where do we get that? What we do is we go into our favorite search engine, and we just make sure that we're running the latest version of Edge. So we just type in download Edge browser. Okay, and just make sure that you download the latest, greatest Microsoft Edge browser. Even if you've already got it on your machine, get the latest one, and then you'll be able to run that on your Windows 10 machine. So that's what it looks like in the Edge browser. So you can see we've built Immersive Reader right across a lot of things. Now, if you did my forms workshop already the other day, if you haven't, please go back and look at all the cool things that you can do with forms, especially around assessment. But I want to show you, I've got a form that's opened up here. And when I come into the student view, you can see that when I hover over the questions of the form, so this is an assessment that we built, there's actually little immersive reader buttons come up. So you can see here, Office 365 Pro Plus can be installed on your laptop and it's true or false. You can actually turn on Immersive Reader inside forms and it will read the question to you.
Office 365 Pro Plus can be installed on your laptop. 1 point. True. False. End of question. Close the reader to input your answer.
Okay, so I could still translate that if I wanted to, etc., but I need to go back into the question, and so I can play that again and again until I know what I'm doing, and then I can actually submit my question like that. All right, so we built it into forms, which is way cool. The other thing that we've done is we built Immersive Reader into Outlook Online. So for those of you that are in a secondary context that are communicating with students through emails, many of your students may not be able to read their email. If you instruct them to view their emails through Outlook, the full version actually has a version of Immersive Reader, but the online version, like with Word, the online version is better. So I just want to show you what that looks like. So if I come up here, here's an email that I wrote to myself. Okay, struggling with that, can't read what it says. I come up here to this little ellipses up here, come down to Immersive Reader, and now my email is actually read to me.
Hi, Troy. This is weird that I am writing to you because you and me. But here I am doing this anyway. Regards and thanks. Troy Waller. Okay,
so the ability to have your emails read to you is way cool as well. All right, we're nearly done, by the way. I want to show you what we've done for Minecraft Education Edition. So remember, there's the consumer version of Minecraft. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Minecraft Education Edition, which is available to you as Caesar Schools. But we've built Immersive Reader into Minecraft. So you can see here there's a board which has got some text that the student may or may not be able to read. What happens is they click on the Immersive Reader button, Immersive Reader loads up, and then they can read that board with the full Immersive Reader experience that we saw before. What is also cool about this is we've built some of those Minecraft icons and Minecraft creatures, etc., into the picture dictionary, so they can they can get prompts and things as well. So that's what it looks like in Minecraft. Now, what does it look like in Teams? Again, Teams is our go-to platform. So I want you please to definitely go back and have a look at what we've done for Teams in that earlier webinar. Let me just come up here and excuse me. Okay, so the first thing we notice is, remember with Teams we have the ability to chat and post our thoughts, but students are going to be locked out of that, right? So what we need to do is we want to be able to read what the chat and the conversation is actually saying. So what we've done here, as you can see, if I hover over the chat and then I click on my ellipses, we can see Immersive Reader will actually read the chat to the student.
Monday, the 23rd of March, 2024, 48 p.m. I really don't know why I am sideways today. Okay, so that full Immersive Reader experience can happen inside the Teams chat, so students aren't locked out of that. The other thing is with it, when we look at our assignments, when a student comes in and looks at an assignment, so I'm just going to take you in and show you the student view of this assignment. Okay, you see the little Immersive Reader button appears, so there's all the instructions and the reference materials, etc. The student can actually click on that and Immersive Reader will read the assignment. Aboriginal culture, introducing Adam Goods. Category, social studies. All right, and remembering that could also be doing the translation as well. All right, so if you don't understand what I'm talking about there in terms of chat and assignments, please go back and watch our first video. Now, the other thing that we've got is we've got Word inside Teams,
OneNote inside Teams, Forms inside Teams. So remembering that you can have that Immersive Reader experience in Teams, but you can have Immersive Reader inside OneNote inside Teams, inside Forms inside Teams, inside Word inside Teams. And what I mean by that is if we come up here to one of our files. All right, so there's our little grade 3 writing document again. When I click on that, it opens up Word Online. So I click edit so I can edit this. It's going to open up Word Online, and then I can have my full Immersive Reader experience inside Teams as well. So we know that if we make these our learning engagements available to students inside Teams, then they are definitely going to have Immersive Reader at its best, whether that's in OneNote or Forms or Word, etc. All right. The other thing I want to point out to you, and I've got the links here, is that we have made the Immersive Reader API, that is the ability to put Immersive Reader inside other apps, is free. So you can see here there's a number of apps that have already brought Immersive Reader in. Canvas as an LMS has brought Immersive Reader in, and I heard recently that Firefly has also built Immersive Reader into their LMS, into their learning management system. But if you've got apps that you think, oh, I just wish Immersive Reader was in there, you can actually steer the publisher to our website, and they can download everything they need to install Immersive Reader into their apps, and it's going to make the apps that you know and love that much more accessible to your students. All right, we are nearly there. Let's talk about next steps before we get to Q&A. So the first thing I want to steer you to is this little course on that educator.microsoft education.microsoft.com website I shared with you before. It's called All About Immersive Reader. The link is down the bottom here when you get the slides, and this is going to take you through and show you everything that you need to know about Immersive Reader, and you can keep this as a reference, as a resource, as well as the slides from today and our video. We have an online course called Empower Every Student with an Inclusive Classroom, which is much bigger than just Immersive Reader, but please jump in and have a look at that, and it'll teach you some of the really cool things that you can do with your students and make available to your students. Another thing I want to make available to you is a series of links. When you get these slides, you can click on them. We have what's called the Disability Answers Desk, which runs from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 10 till 6 on Saturday and Sunday, but it's a 1-800 number. You can ring that number and a real person on the end will actually help you. So this is key to introduce the families and the teachers to the Disabilities Answers Desk. All right, so when you click on that link, have a look and let that load. Okay, you come to the Disabilities Answers Desk. It is a 1-800 phone number, okay, that you can ring and you can get that support. Okay, it's a real person on the end. So whether it's students at home, their families, or you as a teacher. There's also a 24/7 chat, but if you want a real person, then you can click on that there. Forgive me, we'll get there. Okay, the other thing is Microsoft Accessibility has a YouTube channel which will take you through some of the basics, great to share with families and with students. You can also give your feedback to them if you want to suggest a feature, they will respond to you. If you're on Twitter, please follow MSFT Enable, that's Microsoft's Accessibility Twitter handle. And I've got 2 little ebooks there that I think you'll find really interesting about some of the cool stuff that Microsoft has released to you. So, look at this. Redefine what's possible in your school or in your remote school. I'd love you to spread the word about Immersive Reader. I want you to tell the students, your colleagues, other teachers, the aides and your learning support staff, support professionals like OTs and speechies. They love this stuff. They just don't know it's there. Tell your principal and also tell the parents and caregivers. So again, sharing this webinar, sharing the slides, all the links inside here. There's nothing to stop you from getting your head around this and rolling it out to your students. It might take a little while to sort of get the ball rolling, but once you do, I promise it's going to be awesome, and especially for those kids that are at home struggling. Stay informed. That's our MEC newsletter. You can sign up for that and get emails. Remember, Caesar has some resources for you as well. You can also reach out to Deb and she'll be happy to help you. But again, if you want to grab the slides and recordings from our past webinars and for this webinar, please do aka.ms/Caesar webinars. That's really key. Write that one down if you haven't already, or grab a photo with your phone, because this is where you can get all these resources. Microsoft Remote Learning is there for you, MSFT Enable again, and also there's support documents for educators at that link there. Last, I want to remind you that I am on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Facebook. This is my professional accounts, so if you follow me, I will often push out, new accessibility features and inclusivity features and things that are happening. You don't have to find out for yourself. I'll do the finding out, and I'll make sure that it's promoted through my accounts and onto your feed. All right, now I've done a lot of talking and you can hear my voice is already getting quite husky, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see if we've got any questions about Immersive Reader today. Anna.
Hi. Okay, so I had a question about Immersive Reader. Is it available in PowerPoint? I believe it's not.
No, it's not available in PowerPoint, not as yet.
Yeah, okay. This is an interesting question. It might deviate from this session though. Is there a way of writing maths and science formula? Students at my school don't have styluses, and I would be keen for teachers to use ICT to support students remotely, allow for things like tests to be completed by distance.
Yep, sure. So what I'll get you to do, especially in terms of assessments, pop back to my Microsoft Forms webinar, and you can see that there's maths. Some of the science formula formula symbols will be there, but it's mostly for maths. But you can go back and you can run assessments using math symbols, etc. So go back and have a look at that. There is also inside OneNote, there's the ability to input symbols, and I'll just take you in and show you that. I hope I can find it. So yeah, you can see here there's the ability to input symbols in there and also equation symbols in there as well. Okay.
Perfect. That'll be it.
Okay, great. All right, so I hope you got something out of this. Again, remembering this is just the start of the journey. I will make our ongoing webinars available to you somehow, whether that's through directly delivering to you guys or through Caesar. So please visit back for further webinars in this space. So I think that's it from us, unless there's something, Deb, you wanted to add before we go.
No, but thank you very much, Troy, for your webinars. Wonderful.
No worries. Okay, guys, well, have a great Friday. And for those of you that are watching this as a recording, I hope you had a great Friday. Bye-bye.